Hey vinyl community, Steve here, FlipSideCT. Hey, welcome. And I had last showed a Lou Reed documentary I put together, about 50 minutes long, a little lengthy, but I think it covers everything from his childhood all the way up to joining the Velvet Underground. Try to give you some really good information. I did a lot of research. Some folks said they learned some new things, so that's the point. To give you some exposure to some really cool information. And I was really proud of it, and hopefully you could check that out and look into it. It's more for the turn on into what Lou was about and why Lou was Lou. So those are new subscribers. I know there's a lot of movement going on with videos, and there's so many people out there and a lot of people watching. So I encourage, first of all, comments. I really think it's important people to comment, and then also important for people's channels to reply to comments. And I think that's pretty important to do. And anyway, so a lot of my past videos, I showed a lot of mainstream albums. I had to catch up. I think I'm almost there. You know, there's a few here and there that I'm finding, adding to my collection, but I'm more about right now specialty albums, trying to turn you on to unique bands, different bands. Of course, some of them people know already, but I would think most don't. So I'm sort of shy away from the mainstream mostly, trying to turn you on to something different and new. Anyway, you know, it covers several genres. And hopefully you go for the ride with me.
So restless, I can't seem to get no release. Closing my mind full of people be better than all I can see of police. And baby blue junkies and John
So here is something I want to talk about. This band here, you know, there was 1975, 76, very pivotal year in the UK, in Britain, in London. You know, we have the gray area happening, you know, crossover, glam, prog, into punk, and you know, what went on, what happened. A lot of things happening, and glam was sort of ending, prog sort of still there, going, who knows? Because at that time, you had no clue what was going on and what the future held. We can only look back at it now and figure out and see what happened, that punk was a real thing that never died. And of course, I'll keep saying, punk is this not about 1975, 76, etc. It goes back. So there were a lot of bands that were pivotal at that time period. I've talked about this before, but your Steve Harley, Cockney Rebels, you had your Alex Harvey band, Steve Harley, Alex Harvey, your Feel Goods, Dr. Feel Goods, your Heavy Metal Kids, Eddie and the Hot Rods, pub type bands, big cult followings, B-list, not getting up to the high A-list type things, not mainstream, but they were there, they were core. The so-called new punk bands were the ones going to see these bands and help feeding their fuel to get where they were going. So there's one band that comes to mind, and in 1976 they released 2 albums, and they did eventually release a third. And they were really a revealing, fierce talent. They had a lot to offer, and not just lyrically, but musically. And it's just one of those bands that you don't hear of and just gets pushed to the side. And that's my goal here and job, to bring it back to light, to shake off that dust and polish it and bring it to you. Again, some of you know about it. If some of you do, please tell me about this band some more. Not a lot written about them, but there are articles and some websites. So some good information if you you should go research some more and dig into it. They played when they played live. Like I said, some punk people, soon-to-be punk people, would go see them. You know, you had the Sex Pistols, the Jam, Simple Minds, the Damned, Warsaw, which is Joy Division's early group, the Adverts. All these bands would love to see this core, this little B-list package. And this band really, to me, is the missing link of crossover. From 1975 they worked to 1978, crossover like Roxy Music to the Sex Pistols, and that's the Doctors of Madness. Now the album name is Late Night Movies, All Night Brainstorms. I happened to pick this up from Japan on Discogs. Price was really right, however when I got it, you know, near mint, oh yeah, sure, it had a scratch in there, in fact, several scratches. I let the guy know it, still waiting to hear from him. But this is a Japanese pressing, and I'm not going to say this is hard to find, but I would say you got to check this out. So it has lyrics, which is really important, like I said, for this band. So the lead of this band was a fellow named Richard Strange, and he was born in 1951 in London, and he was a fan of the Beat Generation, and he showed it in his lyrics and in his poetry, and just dug that whole scene, just sort of like Lou Reed, you know, the Ginsbergs, the Burroughs, etc. He was headed towards the art school type direction. He wanted to take a gap year. He did, you know, his father basically was controlling him, and he wanted to give him the direction and not let Richard make his choices. So Richard said, you know, screw this. He bought a guitar to piss his father off, and he stayed with it and learned it and moved on. So just after Bowie hit the scene, and you know, Richard decided, sort of at the Diamond Dogs period, he wanted to make his own band, you know, with theatrics and keep that same image. Orange hair was definitely not the way he wanted to go, so he chose blue hair with green sideburns. He was 6'4", so he was a big frame of a guy. He would wear like white Levi's with zippers all the way down the legs. So you know, keep that in mind. It's sort of an image with the zippers. He basically melted urban decay and lunacy and fear, and also corruption in society and drugs. So hence the Burroughs influences here, and that's how it came across and how it was sort of delivered, that type of the chaos, the beat. In fact, Doctors of Madness, the name of the band, was taken from a Burroughs character that appeared through several times, Dr. Benway, and he was a doctor who basically loved to take drugs, and it wasn't about taking care of people, but taking care of himself. Anyway, the band took on some cartoon character-like names. You know, Richard put his name to Kid Strange. They saw an advert where a violinist wanted to get a rock band, and Richard basically said, "Oh, I want to include this. This is good." So the guy was real unique, and you know, hence you think of John Cale, and of course Richard was a fan of Velvet Underground, but he put this guy which his name, actually his cartoon character name, his band name was Urban Blitz. He would feed his violins through special effects, distortions, and come up with different sounds. So it really wasn't like a classical performance, even though he was classical talented. The bass player was named Stoner. So there you go. You know, you got the band together, and in '75, they had to do most of their managing and bookings. No management company wanted to take anything on, you know, with bands just starting up, of course, sounding like this. It was such a unique sound. And word of mouth started to spread about this band. And like I said, a lot of these soon-to-be punkers, they were going to see these bands. And it wasn't until when two sort of experienced hustlers came in and said, "We want to make you a star," with their big cigar in their mouth. Brian Morrison, he was an agent. He had publishing also. He was some big names: Pink Floyd, Free, T-Rex, Pretty Things. He was involved with, and then there was another guy named Justin D. Villeneuve, something like that. Justin. He was actually Twiggy's manager at one point, and so these two guys, hey, they're trying to move ahead, do something different. So they told the band, "Look, we're going to get things going for you. We want you to plow some rehearsing." And so they would rehearse like 6 days a week. They did this for about 6 to 8 weeks. A few things happened in and there. They recorded a documentary. They wanted to get some U.S. executives, record companies, to maybe invest into them. They invited this crew from NBC to come and document them in the studio, rehearsing, performing. And it became a disaster. I don't know the details of why, but the documentary turned out to be sort of goofing on the band and goofing on the two big shot hustlers. Just saying, hey, look at what they're doing. They're manufactured a band together to make something of it. I don't know all the details on this, but it wasn't pleasant documentary. It was pretty botched up and butchered. They even showed Brian Morrison, who was also a polo player, playing polo. You know, it's just a mess. So they pushed away the U.S. executives, and they focused on and got something from Polydor UK and Europe. Now, again, I mentioned it's a 3-album deal. They got about 150 pounds, which is about £1 million today, in today's money. And they were touring. They played constantly, and they had the 2 albums, the one I mentioned, and Figments of Emancipation was the second one. Well, we all know what the UK was like. Well, we should know what the UK was like in 1976 musically. Ground Zero, punk. And it was definitely pivotal punk movements right there. But this Doctors of Madness was really punk before it was punk, which is really the point I'm trying to make here. But that year zero, these younger punks, they really had a hungry sound, and were trying to break it down to become something different musically. So Doctors of Madness got derailed. They got lost right at this time frame of 76. it was really starting to become a flowing sound, like a river of punk, anger, 3-minute songs, I don't care attitude, of course, and a violin playing. Doctors of Madness songs were lengthy, and some of it had a little prog in it, a little glam, and it just fell in between the genres. It just went right into the crack and sort of got buried. It got silenced, sort of, because of this energy of punk happening and glam closing. So that's why this band is considered a missing link and really pivotal. Now, the thought is how they approach this. The two agents, the two fellas who were managing, maybe they didn't know what they were doing, and their plans and how they put this out there weren't really dedicated. And anyway, Richard was still, pushing out what he wanted to push out. But there was some bitter taste going on. Richard said he felt the torch really getting handed off at one particular concert in Middleborough where the Pistols were backing him up. And it was May 21st, 1976. And, Malcolm liked Doctors of Madness. So they came and they played. The band Pistols showed up, late. They were just nasty, they were Pistols. They weren't polite. And Doctors of Madness is just observing and watching from the sidelines, watching them warm up. And then they did 5-minute sound check, and boom. Next thing was they're watching from the stage and watching the Pistols perform. And Richard Kid Strange knew there was a handoff going on. There was something happening here. And that was the pivotal moment, you got to say, for punk. And he saw that happening. And they were 3 years older than the Pistols, so a little bit of a gap. I know the Stranglers were older also, but it still felt like a generational difference. So this album, like I mentioned, has that flavor of everything. Real brilliance in here. The lyrics, like I said. They played it live. They wanted to have like a huge cinematographic type soundtrack. That's a word I did look up in an article, and I'm just saying, okay, it's like a soundtrack, okay? They added a lot of textures. Some places there was a lot of space, some type of sort of ballady, again, not punk. So they were too late for glam, too early for punk, But the music was drama to their sound, and it was a big palette of music there. It was a handful. It was a journey from start to finish. When you listen to it, you sort of want to listen to the entire album because you don't know what's next. It's not predictable at all. And that's the beauty of this album. It's just really, really cool stuff. So the Doctors of Madness still went on to make their third album, but Polydor was moving on. They were onto the new sound of the post-punk, the Banshees, and Cure, or whatever, all those bands. Richard Strange at this point went on to go solo. And he did a career in acting. He also did writing. He does, in fact, have a book out he put out in 2002. Something I really am very curious because of the history on this to read. Just another book to read. So he played in Japan. He did a lot of playing there. Doctors of Madness played live, I think, in 2014 before the bass player died. But Richard still has his band with Urban Blitz. They're still doing some things and playing. So I felt I needed to bring this superb band to you, and most likely you never heard of them, and it's a turn on. And again, those that you know about them, let me know more information, what you can. Would help me. The more you listen to this album, you'll realize how and why they got shortchanged and should have made it a little bigger, but it wasn't the right time. And just remember that there's more to music out there than you realize. And like I said in the beginning, so you need to find it and need to look out. Hoping that if it's not Doctor of Madness, there's so many other bands out there. Don't settle just for mainstream. Unless you don't like change, you know. That's fine. So that's what I got. I hope you enjoyed. You got something out of this band, and you might look into it. I would seriously say go listen to it on YouTube or whatever, pieces. And I think you're going to like it. If not, hey, still something else tomorrow. Talk to you soon, VC. Thank you.
It's the only way out.